Are humans meant to consume cow milk or dairy from any other species? This is one of the most common objections that I get when I talk about all the incredible health benefits of raw milk. People will give me their opinion saying that milk is for baby cows and that humans just aren't designed to drink milk from another species. And people point to the science saying that most of the world's population is lactose intolerant, which is a direct sign that we're just not designed to consume dairy after infancy. Or people often give me their own anecdotes saying that I just don't do well with dairy, I get gassy, bloated, I break out, so therefore dairy must not be a good food for humans. Well, I'm gonna break all these down for you today, so when you're ready, let's jump in. All right, so you understand where I'm coming from with this. I gave up dairy for over a decade. I struggled with all the typical symptoms, the gas, the bloating, all the digestive issues, the acne and the skin issues. So I gave up dairy for over a decade. I switched to all the nut milks, the almond, the macadamia, the coconut milk. I switched to all of it and my symptoms improved. So I just labeled all dairy as problematic. I didn't think dairy was a good food for humans, but I was wrong. And that really changed in 2015 for me. So close to a decade ago, I've been doing raw dairy in my diet. And I didn't experience any of the negative health side effects that I did when I consumed conventional dairy, pasteurized milk, and homogenized milk. And many other individuals report this as well. When they switch to drinking raw dairy compared to pasteurized, homogenized dairy, they also don't experience the negative side effects that they do from typical dairy. And I say all that to say that the way that we have dairy today is completely different. It's done a complete 180 compared to how we've had dairy for nearly all of human history. I mean, only within the past 100 to 150 years have we completely flipped how dairy is processed, how dairy is sourced, and how dairy is consumed in the human diet. Dairy was always raw for as long as humans have consumed it. But only ever so recently we started pasteurizing it because of mid-1800s swill dairies and the terrible filthy conditions that the cows were kept in. It wasn't that the raw milk itself was dangerous by any means, it was the way that humans were raising the cows and the issues that that was presenting. And over the past 100 years or so, dairy got a pretty bad reputation because of the need to pasteurize it, because of what humans did to the dairy industry, trying to ship it across state lines, across the country, thousands of miles. It would go bad quickly, people would get sick, cows were raised in filthy conditions, and the milk would get pretty gross. So many people started experiencing a lot of issues from dairy because of the way that it was processed. But for all of time before that, humans were only consuming raw dairy and people didn't experience the issues like they do today. Now going back to the questions, are humans meant to consume dairy from another species? So to lay the groundwork for that question, I gotta get a little bit philosophical. Well, technically speaking, the only food that is brought into this world for the sole purpose of being eaten is dairy. Take plants like vegetables and fruits and even animals, for instance. Plants don't grow in the wild for the sole purpose of being eaten. Grass doesn't grow to be eaten by cows. All plants want to extend its existence. They're just trying to grow and survive themselves. The same with animals. A gazelle isn't born for the sole purpose of growing and being raised to just be eaten by a lion. It's almost happened by evolutionary accident that species have come to develop ways to consume, digest, and absorb nutrients from plants and or animals. The only thing that is designed from birth for any mammal to be consumed is dairy. So technically, the only thing in this world humans are meant to consume after birth is its own mother's milk. So to answer that question, it is kind of correct to say that humans aren't meant to consume milk from another species. But with that logic, it would also be correct to say that humans aren't meant to consume meat or plants either. It's just at some point in human history, throughout the past maybe 300,000 to 2 million years, have we learned how to extract certain nutrients from food. And we figured out what would actually give us energy. That could be meat, fruits, vegetables, dairy, anything. So are we meant to consume dairy from another species? No, just like we're not meant to consume meat, vegetables, or fruit. But throughout our human timeline, we have learned that consuming milk from another species gives us nutrients. And as I'm about to talk about, the science that shows it gives us a whole lot of benefits. Now, moving on with this conversation, some people have said that humans are the only species that drinks milk from another animal. And this just isn't true. We aren't the only animal that drinks another animal's milk. I don't know if you've ever visited a local farm, but I can go right up the road to my local farm. I go up there every Saturday, and there's always about a dozen cats that are just roaming the property. And do you know what's sitting outside every single time? Big bowls of cow milk. And these cats love it. So we are not the only species that drinks milk. There's many other species that also drink milk from other species. Now, we are the only species that is really capable of milking the udders and teats of other animals. But we are also the only species that is able to cultivate crops and veggies and fruits and raise livestock. Does that mean we aren't supposed to do those things either? You see, the difference between us and other animals is that we've adapted and evolved over time to learn how to do all of these things, which has given us a direct competitive advantage over other species. It's why we're at the top of the food chain. Here's kind of the main takeaway from this point. If other animals were smart enough, were intelligent enough, and were capable, if they had opposable thumbs, if they were able to milk another species, surely they would do it. I don't think it's a question of if they would do it, because in a world of food scarcity, where there's no certainty where your next meal is going to come from, if they were able to milk another species, raise livestock like humans have done for tens of thousands of years, and they were able to milk that animal and get nutrition from it, they would surely do it. I think it's just weird to us in this current day and age where we've seen the problems that go on with conventional agriculture, cows being abused and raised in terrible, filthy conditions. We've seen how corrupt kind of the dairy industry has been throughout the 1900s. They were paying scientists to show that their products, that dairy, that milk was beneficial, but they had to do that because they were taking such a big hit from the government, from the American Heart Association, from scientists saying that saturated fat and milk was a problem. So they had to fight back and retaliate. So now comes the question, how long have humans actually been consuming dairy? Because I think this is a pivotal question that plays a role in this conversation. What humans have been doing for the longest is a pretty good indicator of what we should continue to do that gives us good health moving forward. So needless to say, humans have been consuming cow dairy for a very long time. It was first documented that milk was consumed by humans 49,000 years ago. This was in the Witwatersrand Cave in Johannesburg, South Africa. This is where they found cave paintings of okra and milk. If there were cave paintings of milk at this time 49,000 years ago, you can pretty much guarantee that humans were consuming milk for a period of time before that. Because when humans hunted, humans have been hunting, we have evidence of humans hunting and consuming a large portion of their diet from meat. It's what scientists believe caused the skyrocketing increase in our brain size over the past 300,000 to 2 million years. So when humans hunted these animals, whatever those animals were, they wanted to get the fattest, the largest animal that they could, because that was nutrients, that was calories, that was fat, that was going to sustain them and their tribe. You could get millions of calories, multi-millions of calories from one woolly mammoth. And when they hunted these animals, you can also pretty much guess that every now and then, our first exposure to dairy was through accidental hunting. When humans hunted, because they hunted the largest and fattest animals, it was probably a guarantee that they were getting milk from the mammary glands of some of these animals. But at what point in history did humans have reliable and consistent access to dairy? Researchers have ample evidence that humans have been consistently drinking other species' milk for at least 10,000 years. This is where the bulk of the evidence lies. There is so much evidence that suggests that we started consistently drinking dairy around the advent of the agricultural revolution 10 to 12,000 years ago. This is where archaeologists and other researchers have found evidence of other animals' dairy in pottery vessels, the dental remains of early Neolithic humans, bone analysis, and even in baby bottles of prehistoric children. So it's pretty safe to say that humans have been consuming dairy for a long time because, like I mentioned, in a world of food scarcity, where you didn't know where your next meal was coming from, having dairy, having milk was such an incredible resource for humans. They didn't have Uber Eats. they didn't have a grocery store they could go to. Being able to raise livestock and being able to milk a cow or a goat or another lactating mammal, being able to do that meant that they could have a renewable source of food incoming every day. Because you can kill a cow and it'll give you millions of calories to feed your tribe. But what happens when you no longer have that meat or those organs from that cow? You're out of nutrition. Whereas you can keep that cow alive and you can keep milking it day after day, week after week, month after month, and it's going to give you much more nutrition than killing the cow would have done. When our ancestors realized they could milk a cow or a goat, that was their Uber Eats. That was their grocery store. That was them realizing they just now had a reliable and consistent access to get food. And again, in a world of food scarcity where you don't know where your next meal is coming from, when you have to work for your food and you can't just sit on your couch and order it up, you actually have to go out there and move your body and work for it. Having this access to dairy meant that you were at a direct competitive advantage to other cultures that couldn't do that. Having this reliable access to nutrition meant that you were able to grow yourself big and strong and also extend your genetic code to your offspring. But do we have any modern day examples of cultures doing this? Well, the Maasai are one example that we've talked about a lot on this platform already. What they do is super unique. They take a cow from their herd and they puncture the neck. They have a bow and arrow and they puncture the neck of the cow in the carotid artery. So this cow starts bleeding and they fill up a vessel, a pot or a jug of blood, and they mix that with its milk. And then they pass that around the tribe and they drink that. But it doesn't kill the cow. They stuff a little dirt in that cow's neck and then they send it back on its way. Then they cycle through all their herd and allow that one cow time to heal. So a month or two later, then they use that cow again. This is a super intelligent thing that the Maasai have done because this means that they don't have to kill their cows. They can still get a ton of nutrition from blood, being one of the most nutritious foods on the planet. Then raw milk added to that, this gives them an incredible amount of energy for the men to go out and hunt and work in the field all day. And they don't have to kill their cows to do it. They're able to get this renewable resource of energy that's going to nourish them. It's no doubt one of the major reasons why they are still a thriving culture without any chronic disease today. Now, there's also other examples of cultures using milk throughout time. Published in the Journal of the American Medical Association in 1884, milk has been used for centuries to treat a wide array of diseases. Hippocrates, over 2,500 years ago, Hippocrates, known as the father of modern medicine, used milk to treat a variety of diseases. He used milk as medicine. Even in Ayurvedic medicine, milk is used to treat people. Even in the early days of the United States, raw milk was used for about 150 years to treat many conditions. What's up, guys? If you're loving this content, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button below. We're coming out with a lot of incredible content just like this, so hit that subscribe button and you'll be the first to know. Now, moving on, people will often say that because a majority of the world's population is lactose intolerant, that's a sign that we just aren't designed to consume dairy. Now, it is true. Around 2/3 of the world's population is lactose intolerant, according to a 2017 meta-analysis. What lactose intolerance means is that we naturally lose the lactase enzyme shortly after infancy, after we're done breastfeeding. And lactose is the enzyme that breaks down the milk sugar lactose. So if you're somebody out there that doesn't have the lactase enzyme and you consume pasteurized dairy or conventional dairy from your grocery store, you're probably going to have digestive issues, gas, bloating. You might break out with skin issues and other common symptoms. Now, the rest of the 1/3 of the population that still contains the lactase enzyme into adulthood, this is what's called lactase persistence. They contain the lactase persistence gene. Now, you remember back earlier in this video when I said that raw milk doesn't give me the same negative side effects that conventional milk does. Why is that? I'm somebody that's lactose intolerant. If I have pasteurized dairy, if I go to the store and just buy conventional milk, I'm going to suffer gas, bloating. I'm going to have cramps. I'm going to probably break out with skin issues, but raw milk doesn't do any of that to me. And why is that if I don't have the lactase enzyme anymore? Well, raw dairy actually contains probiotics. healthy bacteria that create lactase in the human gut. That's why many people report doing much better with raw dairy. There was even a recent informal survey of over 700 different families. They were given a questionnaire and asked, how do you do with raw dairy? And over 80% of them said that they don't suffer the same negative consequences from raw dairy that they do with pasteurized dairy. Because lactose intolerance, like we commonly think of it in today's world, is really just pasteurization intolerance. Pasteurization was invented not for milk. It was invented for alcohol by Louis Pasteur. It's just because of the 1800s swill dairies, the terrible filthy conditions, that whole mess of a situation that we'll talk more about in future episodes, that created a really foul-smelling, disease-filled milk that many people died from. Tens of thousands of people died from drinking this milk in New York City and Chicago, in the major urban areas, and they needed a solution to kill off all that harmful bacteria. So pasteurization was one of those methods that was ushered in to address that issue. But when the milk is pasteurized, it basically creates a completely dead liquid. There's no more probiotics in that because natural raw milk has probiotics, beneficial bacteria that help to nourish the gut. And when the milk is pasteurized, it's heated up to 200, 300 degrees for a few seconds, ultra high temp pasteurization. It's heated up and it kills off everything. It kills off all the beneficial probiotics. So it's literally not the same food anymore. It's a Franken milk is what I like to call it. And because pasteurized milk doesn't have all these probiotics in it, when you drink that, if you're somebody out there that is lactose intolerant, you don't make the lactase enzyme anymore, and you drink that conventional milk that no longer has the lactobacillus or the bifidobacterium in it, and you drink it, you're not able to make a lactase inside your gut. So you're just going to experience all the negative health effects. But if you drink raw dairy, you're probably going to be a lot better off. Now, dairy isn't for everyone. With this entire discussion, are humans meant to consume dairy from another animal? Dairy still isn't for everyone, and you might still not do well with raw dairy. In my experience, many people do better with raw dairy, raw cheese, raw butter, yogurts, and especially fermented kefirs, fermented milk. People do really well with that, but don't force it if you're somebody that doesn't do well with it. But with that being said, there are a host of incredible health benefits of consuming raw dairy that are backed by science. The first benefit is it's meant to be a nourishing food, so it's going to be packed full of virtually every nutrient that we need. And most of these nutrients, people are chronically deficient or severely low in. Raw dairy is full of potassium, vitamin B12, calcium, right, for strong bones, vitamin D, vitamin A, magnesium, zinc, most of the B vitamins, and omega-3s. It's also full of conjugated linoleic acid. This is CLA. This is a healthy type of fat that's been shown to reduce the risk of diabetes and heart disease. The second science-backed benefit of consuming raw dairy is that it's also a very bioavailable source of complete protein. This means it's very easily absorbed and it contains all the essential amino acids. But what does the science say? Well, some studies have found that higher consumption of milk and other milk products have been linked to greater whole body muscle mass and better physical performance in older adults. Several studies have even demonstrated that drinking milk after a workout can decrease muscle damage, promote muscle repair, increase strength, and even decrease muscle soreness. Now, the third benefit of consuming raw dairy should come at no surprise. It's been shown to lower the risk of osteoporosis and fractures in older adults. There have been countless studies showing that dairy lowers the risk of osteoporosis and fractures in older adults especially. Now, the fourth major benefit of consuming raw dairy is that it helps prevent weight gain. There was a single study including more than 18,000 middle-aged and elderly women that showed that eating more high-fat dairy, not low-fat, not that skim milk, but eating more high-fat dairy products was associated with less weight gain and a lower risk of obesity. This association is also supported by a host of randomized controlled trials from conjugated linoleic acid, CLA, and butyrate showing that consuming these high-fat dairy products boost weight loss. Not to mention that dairy is just a high protein food that's going to help satiate you and make you feel full for longer. Now, the last benefit of many more that I could talk about is that dairy is anti-inflammatory, or at the very least, it's neutral. It's definitely not inflammatory. And that's if you are somebody that is not allergic to the milk proteins. Because there was a review of 15 randomized controlled trials that found no pro-inflammatory effect of milk or other dairy product intake in healthy adults or in adults that were overweight, obese, had type 2 diabetes, or metabolic syndrome. If that's not enough, there was also a review of 8 randomized controlled trials that observed no effect of dairy intake on markers of inflammation in adults with overweight or obesity. And lastly, there was another review in children ages 2 to 18 that found no evidence that consuming whole fat dairy foods increased inflammatory molecules, namely TNF alpha and interleukin 6. Now, with all of this information, the history of humans consuming dairy, and the science-backed benefits of dairy improving humans' health, how can you say that humans shouldn't consume dairy, especially raw dairy? Again, this is something that I've updated my beliefs on. I went 10 years thinking dairy wasn't a health food for humans, but after seeing the evidence, understanding the timeline, understanding that not all dairy is the same, and there's a major difference between raw dairy and pasteurized and homogenized dairy. Not all dairy comes from conventionally raised animals. Not all dairy supports big dairy in the dairy industry. I personally recommend sourcing your dairy from local farms right down the road where you can shake your farmer's hand, you can see the cow or cows that you're getting your milk from, and you know who you're supporting. There's a massive difference in sourcing local raw dairy or vat pasteurized dairy, which is low temp pasteurized dairy, and supporting big dairy who are really just in it for the profit. I think ever since the mid 1800s, where humans started grouping cows closer together, humans started living closer together in cities and major urban environments, and we started selling milk on a mass scale, that really ruined the reputation of dairy altogether. And now in modern day, with the advent of social media and things getting publicized more, and there being a lot of misinformation out there, all dairy has gotten lumped together as being problematic. But this is something that I've changed my views on over time. And again, raw dairy from local farms is definitely not the same as big dairy, because the way humans have consumed dairy throughout time was never like it is today. Today, you can go to the grocery store and grab a jug of milk off the store shelf, and that's a combination of hundreds of different cows probably. The way humans have always consumed dairy was you had a couple dairy cows, you had goats, you had local animals that you raised, and you saw exactly what was going into that process. That's the way dairy has always been a health food. It's something that our biology has come to expect. It's something that humans can gain a lot of nutrition from, as the science shows. And if there's one major takeaway from this, it's that not all dairy is the same, and humans are meant to consume dairy from other species. I appreciate you being here. If you like this content, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button below. Please send this video out to somebody that you know needs to see it most, and I'll talk to you next time.